Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tabletop Tales. Today we will continue our story from last time, in a way, since we only played a few games of 4th edition before giving it up, and quickly switched to 3.5 edition. I have a double feature for you today, because the first story is so short. Our first adventure in 3.5 was DM'd by the guy who did the Fire Beetle TPK, since he had more experience with 3.5 than I did. And I wanted to play a session before DMing. I really liked the name Auto Erector because I was a silly young man, so I remade him as a human cleric of Pelor since there were no Dragonborn in 3.5. We also had Grimlock Ironblood, a dwarf barbarian, outcast from his clan for killing someone in a bar fight, played by the DM. We had, of course, Twinkletits, the elven wizard, played by the same guy who played an elf wizard in 4E. Very creative. And a mysterious little gnome. He carried a tiny mandolin and claimed to be a bard, but had no actual magic at this level, since he started as a rogue. He only told us to call him Shmi, and had a thick accent. So the GM gave us a plot hook. There was an abandoned church on the edge of town that had a sort of a bad reputation. Some people had gone missing from there recently. So we went to the church and delved into it, only to find that some of the corpses had risen as zombies. So we started fighting them, and everything was going all right. Both me and Grimlock carried greatswords, and the zombies were weak to slashing damage. So we were cutting up them stinky boys like fetid steaks. But then I rolled a natural 1. Now, in our campaign, we had fumble tables. So whenever you rolled a 1, you would roll again to see how bad the fumble was. The DM would either assign an appropriate thing to the situation. If you were climbing a cliff, for example, you might slip and have to make another climb check to grab onto a ledge quickly before you fall down to your doom. And it was based on what you rolled. So another 1 would mean a terrible disaster, and a natural 20 would mean that you completely avoided the fumble. I rolled like a 3 or something, so it was real bad. I hit myself and knocked myself into negative hit points, which meant that I was die. Essentially, the DM decided that I had nearly cut my own leg off. Now, thankfully, the crew managed to finish off the zombies and stabilized me before I bled out. But having the cleric down in the party when you have no healing magic because you're level 1 is very tense. We managed to get a bit of gold and upgraded our armor, and I took over DMing the next session. Since we only had 3 players and a dungeon master, and nobody else wanted to play cleric, I continued to play Otto. And it just so happened that before I even ever played the 3.5 game, I was planning a similar adventure. We had to go and investigate a church for the Order of the Sun, who were clerics and paladins of Pelor, the human sun god. So the group set off towards this other church that they were to investigate and retrieve a holy relic that was buried with an ancient saint there before it was nabbed up by tomb robbers. We didn't gain enough experience to level up from the previous adventure, so we were all still level 1. And Shmi, being a rogue, didn't need new armor or anything, so he spent basically all of his money on alchemist's fire and carried a bandolier of it around with him. We also purchased a few mules to carry some things for us. Mules are super OP in 3.5 edition. They cost like 2 gold or something, and they carry an absolute shit ton of stuff. They're also excellent bait for monsters. I think we also bought a couple of healing potions as well. Those things are bloody expensive for first level adventurers, so that took most of our pooled gold. So we rode our mules out through the forest. On the way to the church, we were stopped by a group of 4 ruffians. They gave the party an ultimatum: your gold or your lives. So Shmi spoke up: we choose a third option, your lives. And we attacked. But what the group didn't realize was that there were bandits in the trees that had bows, and they were raining arrows down on us while we were fighting the bandits that were directly in front of us. Otto got out his shield and charged forward with Grimlock and fought on the front lines, giving the bandits what for. Meanwhile, Shmi and Twink searched the trees for the archers. They managed to find them and had a ranged battle. They were at a large disadvantage because the archers had excellent visual cover from the leaves of the trees. Now, The archers saw that their frontline guys were getting pretty overwhelmed by a raging dwarf and a battle cleric. So I fired off some shots against Grimlock since he had the lower AC. He was also raging and wasn't particularly focused on defending himself. He was already a little bit injured, and the bandits had longbows, and I rolled a natural 20. Now, in 3.5 edition, bows deal triple damage on a crit, and their base damage is 1d8. So I rolled 3d8 and rolled near max damage. And because he was already injured, I outright killed him. I put him way into negative hit points, and he was gone. So essentially, the bandits, they just 360 no-scoped him in the fucking head. Now, in response, Shmee tossed an alchemist's fire into the tree and rolled a crit himself. So one of the bowmen was just outright fucking exploded by this huge fireball. Chunks of charred bandit flying through the air. It was so incredible. And the last bandit bowman just sort of jumped out of the tree and ran for his life. The party didn't chase him because we had more pressing matters. We had to deal with Grimlock. Grimlock was dead. So, what was the party to do? Their DPS was dead, and they were down to 3 people. And I wasn't expecting this. Again, another really difficult circumstance to have at the table when it comes up is character death. How do you deal with it? So I talked to the player, and I asked, do you want to maybe get him revived, or do you just want to roll up a new character? He said that he wanted to get him revived, so we decided that since he had fallen in the service of the Order of the Sun, that they would be willing to resurrect him on credit. Resurrections cost 10,000 gold. So that essentially meant that Grimlock was going to be in debt for a very long time. But the player wanted to stick through it and play his dwarf that he had made, and I ended up throwing a little bit of extra gold at the party here and there so that we could put it towards his debt. Essentially, what ended up happening in the long run is that Grimlock and Otto both worked to pay off his debt, while Creek and Shmee ended up sort of, they had a lot of things to pay for, scrolls and things like that. And, Shmee was also just a real greedy little bastard. What's to be expected of a rogue bard, of course. And so Grimlock was revived. And I didn't impose the normal, constitution damage, because the damage was mostly to his head. He got shot in the head with a bow, so if anything, he should have lost intelligence. I mean, to be honest, he had very high intelligence considering he was a barbarian, but I didn't want to put that on him. That was not fair in my opinion. So the party headed out again and managed to make it to the church without any further setbacks, and they faced down a pack of skeletons in the graveyard of the church. They camped out in the rickety sort of rundown above ground part of the church. There was holes in the roof and all of the pews were all rotted and falling apart. They delved down into the depths of the church, the crypts beneath, and they faced several undead tomb guardians, and they did manage to retrieve the holy relic. And this is where mules come in, guys. They took all of the old rusty weapons and armor, like vases and various little art pieces, basically everything that wasn't nailed down. They threw it in sacks and tied it to the mules and came back to town with so much junk and knickknacks that they made hundreds of gold off of all of that crap. So if you want to, RP a Skyrim character carrying around all of their shit, just get a mule in D&D. It's straight up insane amounts of carrying capacity for 2 gold. Grimlock and Otto put a down payment on his debt, and they went to the tavern, had a few drinks, and otherwise upgraded their gear and bought some more potions, things like that. Now, you may be wondering, why are there so many desecrated churches with undead in them? What is going on? Well, my friends, that is a tale for another time. Did you enjoy the stories today? Let me know your favorite parts in the comments down below, and share any crazy player death stories that you have yourself. I mean, these bandits were basically commoners with bows. They were not really dangerous at all, but hey, anyone's dangerous when they roll a natural 20 in 3.5. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out some of my other content. I've got all kinds of stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.